In the cold vacuum between stars, power is measured in worlds conquered, species subjugated, and the silent efficiency with which resistance is crushed. For over 10,000 years, the Galactic Confederation stood unchallenged, a colossus bestriding the spiral arms of our galaxy like a god. 1,200 member species, 87,000 inhabited worlds. Fleets so vast, they blotted out suns when they arrived in orbit. Technology so advanced, it bordered on the arcane. The Confederation didn't just rule, they defined the very concept of civilization itself. Their conquest algorithm was perfect, refined through millennia of unopposed victories. Step 1. Arrive without warning. Step 2. Demand immediate surrender. Step 3. Demonstrate overwhelming force against military targets. Step 4. Accept capitulation. Step 5. Integration into the Confederation hierarchy. It never failed, not once in 10,000 years, until they found Earth. Just another blue-green world spinning around an unremarkable yellow star. Just another species of bipedal mammals taking their first tentative steps into space. Just another conquest to be catalogued, processed, and forgotten. Or so they thought. But the Confederation couldn't possibly understand. What their perfect algorithms and predictive models failed to account for was that humans don't follow patterns. We don't adhere to the logical progression of warfare that had served the Confederation for thousands of years. We are, by our very nature, agents of chaos. And chaos, as the Confederation was about to learn, is the most powerful force in the universe. This is the story of how a species that had barely reached its own moon brought an interstellar empire to its knees. This is the story of how humanity turned the tide against an enemy that had never known defeat. This is the story of Project Chaos. They arrived on July 17, 2047, what we now call Dark Tuesday. 300 ships, each one a floating metropolis of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields, materialize simultaneously in Earth's orbit through quantum tunnels that our most advanced physicists had only begun to theorize about. The ships didn't match any conventional design logic. Some were spherical, others resembled crystalline structures, still others seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt the human eye to observe. But all shared one characteristic: they dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. The smallest was roughly the size of Manhattan. The largest could have swallowed Rhode Island whole. Dr. Samira Patel, lead astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory, described the moment in her final transmission. It's like watching gods arrive. The energy readings are off the charts. Our instruments can't even calibrate properly. Whatever these things are, they're rewriting the laws of physics just by existing. 17 minutes after their arrival, every screen on Earth, televisions, computers, phones, billboards, displayed the same message in perfect, unaccented versions of all 7,139 human languages. People of Earth, you are now within the sphere of influence of the Galactic Confederation. Your technological and societal development has reached the threshold for integration. Submit to Confederation authority immediately. Resistance will result in cleansing protocols. You have one planetary rotation to comply. The United Earth Defense Council, hastily assembled from military leaders around the globe, drafted humanity's response. There was debate, of course. Some argued for immediate surrender to save lives. Others insisted we should at least try to negotiate terms. In the end, General Ibrahim Okafor of the Pan-African Alliance delivered humanity's answer. We respectfully decline your offer of integration. Earth belongs to humanity. We will defend our home. Some say he added "come and try" off the record. Others claim he used more colorful language. Whatever the exact words, the message was clear. humanity would not go quietly. The Confederation's response was immediate and devastating. They followed their standard protocol to the letter: precision strikes against military installations, communication networks, and government facilities. Their weapons defied comprehension, beams of coherent light that could slice through hardened bunkers like butter, gravity weapons that crushed entire naval fleets into balls of compressed metal, atmospheric disruptors that turned the air itself into a weapon. Within 6 hours, 70% of Earth's conventional military capability had been neutralized. Within 12, our global communications were in shambles. By the end of the first day, every major city on the planet had experienced at least one demonstration of Confederation firepower. Admiral Zhao of the Pan-Pacific Alliance described the situation in his final transmission before Beijing fell. "It's like fighting gods with sticks. Our most advanced weapons can't even penetrate their defensive screens. Missiles detonate harmlessly against invisible barriers. Railguns might as well be throwing pebbles. We're throwing rocks at a tsunami and expecting it to retreat." The Confederation's Grand Marshal, a being known as Zor-Thul, addressed Earth's remaining leaders from his command ship. The being appeared vaguely humanoid, but with iridescent scales instead of skin, 6 eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern, and a voice that seemed to bypass the ears and materialize directly in the mind. "Your resistance is both futile and perplexing. No species has ever persisted after the first day of cleansing. This behavior is inefficient and illogical. Submit now and we will be merciful. Continue and we will make an example of your world that will echo across 1,000 systems." But humans have never been good at taking orders from tyrants, no matter how many eyes they have. What happened next confused the Confederation's military analysts to the point of computational error. Instead of surrendering or continuing conventional warfare, humanity scattered. Military units broke into small cells operating independently. Civilians formed resistance groups with no central command. Government structures dissolved into fluid networks with no clear leadership hierarchy. The Confederation had no protocol for this. Their conquest model relied on decapitating leadership and forcing surrender. But how do you force surrender when there's no one person who can surrender on behalf of everyone? What? That is, nakedly. And Dr. Emma Chen, who would later become the architect of Project Chaos, explained it best in her hidden broadcast from the ruins of Cambridge University. "Humans are not a hive mind. We're not even a unified species in the way the Confederation understands unity. We're 7 billion individuals with 7 billion different breaking points, 7 billion different thresholds of resistance, 7 billion different ways of fighting back. You can't break us all at once." The Confederation's ground forces, biomechanical constructs that resembled a nightmarish fusion of insect and machine, found themselves ambushed by tactics they'd never encountered in 10 millennia of warfare. In the Amazon, resistance fighters coated their bullets with poison from native frogs, discovering that Confederation ground troops had no defense against Earth's evolved toxins. In Afghanistan, tribal warriors used ancient tunnel networks to appear and disappear like ghosts, striking Confederation supply lines before melting back into the mountains. In the ruins of Tokyo, teenagers reprogrammed service robots to deliver improvised explosives to Confederation checkpoints. A captured transmission between Confederation field commanders revealed their growing frustration. These humans don't fight like a civilized species. They don't retreat when outgunned. They don't surrender when defeated. They change tactics constantly, with no discernible pattern. Some attack in groups, others alone. Some use technology, others primitive projectile weapons. Some even attack with their bare hands when all else fails. It's as if they're making up the rules of warfare as they go along. That observation was more profound than they realized. We were indeed making it up as we went along. Because that's what humans do when backed into a corner. We improvise. In New Delhi, a high school chemistry teacher created a compound that temporarily disrupted the Confederation's communication frequencies. In Rio de Janeiro, a street gang discovered that Confederation sensors could be fooled by certain patterns of movement derived from capoeira. In Detroit, automotive engineers retrofitted assembly line robots with flamethrowers effective against Confederation ground troops. None of these efforts could win the war, but collectively, they created something the Confederation had never encountered before: friction, unpredictability, chaos. And chaos, it turned out, was something the Confederation was ill-equipped to handle. 6 months into the invasion, with 40% of Earth's surface under direct Confederation control, a secret meeting took place in the underwater research facility beneath what used to be the Marianas Trench. The facility had been built years before as a last-resort survival bunker for humanity's brightest minds. Now, it housed the last free scientific think tank on the planet. The room was crowded with the most brilliant humans still alive: physicists, engineers, biologists, military strategists, and political leaders from every corner of the globe. The air was thick with tension and the peculiar smell of too many stressed humans in too small a space. Dr. Emma Chen, a quantum physicist who had been studying captured Confederation technology, stood before a holographic display showing the internal workings of a Confederation quantum drive. Her small frame seemed to grow as she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of revelation. "I've discovered something about the Confederation that changes everything. Their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness: predictability. Their technology, their tactics, their entire civilization is built on patterns and protocols that have remained unchanged for millennia. They've optimized everything to the point where innovation is not just unnecessary but actively discouraged." She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the quantum drive's core. "Look at their quantum drives. Perfect efficiency based on absolute predictability of quantum states. Their weapons, their shields, their communication networks, all rely on the universe behaving exactly as their equations predict it will." Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a quantum physicist who had been studying captured Confederation technology, nodded in agreement. His face, half scarred from a Confederation attack on Tokyo, twisted in a grim smile. "Their entire technological base assumes a deterministic universe. They've found ways to predict and control quantum behavior that we thought was inherently unpredictable." "Exactly," Dr. Chen said, her eyes gleaming with the light of discovery. "But what if it is unpredictable? What if they've just been forcing it into predictable patterns for so long that they've forgotten the true nature of reality?" She pulled up a new display, a visualization of quantum probability waves collapsing into defined states. Quantum mechanics, as we understand it, is fundamentally probabilistic. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle tells us there are limits to what can be known or predicted. But the Confederation has somehow bypassed this, creating technology that depends on quantum certainty. General Maria Santos, who had led the South American resistance to that point, leaned forward, her weathered face furrowed in concentration. "Are you saying their technology shouldn't work according to our understanding of physics?" "I'm saying their technology works because they've imposed order on quantum chaos," Dr. Chen replied. "They've been doing it so long across so many worlds that they've forgotten it's not the natural state of things." And thus, Project Chaos was born. The theory was revolutionary: create a device that would amplify quantum uncertainty in a targeted area. Not just random noise, but true, fundamental unpredictability at the quantum level. A device that would make reality itself unreliable within its field of effect. The Confederation's technology, dependent on perfect quantum predictability, would simply stop working. For 3 months, the brightest minds left on Earth worked tirelessly in the underwater facility. They cannibalized Confederation technology from captured units, integrated it with human theoretical physics that the aliens had dismissed as primitive, and created something entirely new: the Chaos Drive. The prototype sat on a pedestal in the center of the lab, an unassuming device about the size of a microwave oven. glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to shift and change even when viewed directly. Inside, quantum particles were being held in a state of superposition, neither one thing nor another, a physical manifestation of Schrödinger's cat. Dr. Chen explained the theory to the assembled leaders. When activated, the chaos drive will create a field where quantum uncertainty is amplified exponentially. Within this field, the probability waves that the Confederation has learned to control will become truly random again. Their technology, which relies on predictable quantum states, will fail in ways we can't even predict. General Santos, a practical woman who had survived 3 Confederation assaults, asked the question everyone was thinking. If this works, if we introduce fundamental uncertainty into reality itself, how do we know we can control it? How do we know it won't affect our own technology, our own bodies? Dr. Chen's answer was chilling in its simplicity. We don't. That's the point. But human technology doesn't rely on quantum certainty the way theirs does. Our computers, our weapons, they're designed with redundancy, with failure in mind. They're messy and inefficient compared to Confederation tech, but they can function even when parts of them fail. She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. More importantly, the human mind thrives on uncertainty. We make decisions with incomplete information every day. We adapt to changing circumstances. We improvise. The Confederation doesn't. They haven't had to in 10,000 years. Dr. Tanaka added, in a sense, we're not creating chaos. We're just restoring the natural state of the quantum universe that the Confederation has been suppressing. We're letting reality be real again. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just building a weapon. They were fundamentally changing the rules of the game. The first field test of the Chaos Drive was scheduled for what had once been Toronto, now a major Confederation forward base. The strike team consisted of 12 volunteers, led by Colonel James Harper, a former Special Forces operator who had lost his entire family during the initial invasion. The Chaos Drive had been miniaturized to the size of a suitcase, though Dr. Chen warned that its effects would be proportionally reduced. The mission was simple: infiltrate the base, activate the drive, and get out before the effects became apparent. The team moved through the ruins of Toronto under cover of night. The once proud skyline was now dominated by the angular, impossible geometry of Confederation architecture. Buildings that seemed to fold in on themselves, structures that appeared different depending on the angle from which they were viewed. Confederation patrols moved with mechanical precision, their routes so predictable that Harper's team could time their movements down to the second. This predictability, the very thing that had made the Confederation unstoppable for millennia, was now working against them, and slowly working against them. The team reached the central processing hub, a structure that resembled a massive, inverted pyramid hovering 10 feet above the ground. Harper placed the Chaos Drive at the base of the structure, directly beneath the quantum core that powered the entire base. "Remember," he told his team as they retreated to the minimum safe distance, "once this thing activates, all bets are off. Nothing is going to work the way it should. Not their tech, maybe not ours either. Be ready for anything." With those words, he activated the drive remotely. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then reality hiccuped. There's no other word for it. The air seemed to ripple. Colors shifted. Sound became momentarily syrupy. And then the Confederation base came alive. But not in the way it was supposed to. Lights that should have been white blazed in impossible colors. Doors opened onto spaces that couldn't possibly exist behind them. Confederation soldiers moved in jerky, broken patterns, some firing weapons that shot backwards, others frozen in mid-step as if time itself had become uncertain. The quantum core at the center of the base, visible through the transparent walls of the pyramid, pulsed with energy that arced in random directions. Confederation systems, designed to channel and control this energy with perfect precision, couldn't handle the sudden introduction of quantum uncertainty. Harper watched in awe as a Confederation battle mech, a 12-foot-tall amalgamation of organic and mechanical parts, tried to target his team. Its targeting systems, dependent on quantum computation, couldn't resolve the suddenly probabilistic nature of reality. It fired at where Harper might be, where he had been, where he could potentially go, everywhere except where he actually was. Meanwhile, the team's own weapons, crude chemical projectile launchers and improvised explosives, continued to function. Not perfectly, but well enough. Human technology, designed with failure in mind, could tolerate a certain amount of uncertainty. The results exceeded even Dr. Chen's wildest expectations. Within minutes, the entire Confederation base was in chaos. Systems failed in cascading, unpredictable ways. Defensive shields protected humans instead of Confederation troops. Communication systems broadcast in languages that had never existed. Weapons systems targeted their own troops or simply dissolved into constituent particles. Reality itself seemed to glitch around the Confederation technology. And in the center of it all, human technology. Crude, redundant, designed to function even when parts of it failed, continued to work. Just well enough. Harper's team moved through the base like ghosts, eliminating confused Confederation troops with brutal efficiency. Some of the aliens simply stood frozen, their neural interfaces unable to process the contradictory information flooding their senses. Others moved in random patterns, firing at shadows or attacking their own comrades. It's like they've never had to deal with uncertainty before, Harper's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rodriguez, whispered, as they watched a Confederation officer try repeatedly to access a door that kept changing its location. They don't know how to function when reality doesn't match their predictions. That's exactly it, Harper replied. They've spent 10,000 years making the universe behave. They've forgotten how to adapt when it doesn't. The Toronto base fell in less than an hour. Not a single human casualty. The Confederation's response was immediate and overwhelming. They bombarded the site from orbit, reducing Toronto and much of the surrounding area to glass. The strike team barely escaped with the Chaos Drive, protected by the very uncertainty field it generated as reality itself seemed to bend around them, making targeting impossible. But it was too late. We had the proof of concept. Dr. Chen and her team worked feverishly to produce more Chaos Drives. The underwater facility became a factory with scientists and engineers working around the clock. Within weeks, resistance cells around the world had been equipped with miniaturized Chaos Drives. The effects were most dramatic around Confederation technology. Their quantum-based systems, dependent on absolute predictability, simply couldn't function in the presence of amplified uncertainty. But the chaos didn't discriminate entirely. Human technology suffered too, just not as catastrophically. A resistance fighter from the Australian outback described it perfectly in her field report. It's like fighting in a hurricane. Everything goes wrong for everyone. But we're used to things going wrong. We've been dealing with Murphy's Law our whole lives. The Confeds act like they've never had a plan fail before. Confederation strongholds began to fall one by one. Their flawless technology became worse than useless. It became actively dangerous to its users. Quantum cores overloaded. Artificial gravity reversed. Weapons disintegrated in their wielder's hand. A particularly satisfying moment came when the Confederation attempted to adapt. They deployed what they called stabilization fields to counter the chaos effect. Technology designed to impose quantum certainty on areas affected by the Chaos Drives. The fields worked perfectly in their simulations. In reality, they amplified the chaos exponentially. The interaction between the stabilization fields and the Chaos Drives created a cascading failure of reality itself. 3 of their capital ships, attempting to deploy the countermeasure from orbit, phased partially into another dimension. The ships still hang in Earth's orbit today, half monument to the danger of assuming you understand chaos. The Confederation had spent 10,000 years perfecting a technological ecosystem based on certainty. They had no backup systems, no contingencies for fundamental reality failure. They had never needed them before. Humans, on the other hand, had been living with uncertainty since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what they were. Our technology was built with failure in mind. Our strategies assumed that things would go wrong. Our entire civilization was a testament to making do when the universe didn't cooperate. As General Santos put it in her address to the Unified Resistance, the Confederation has forgotten something fundamental about the universe. It's not supposed to make sense. Chaos isn't a bug in reality. It's a feature. And humans have been beta testing it since we climbed down from the trees. 8 months after the first Chaos Drive was deployed in Toronto, something unprecedented happened. The Confederation began to retreat. They abandoned Earth's major cities first, pulling their forces back to fortified positions around key resource extraction sites. Then, as more Chaos Drives were deployed, they abandoned those too. Finally, after a daring operation in which resistance fighters managed to smuggle a Chaos Drive onto the Confederation's primary orbital command platform, they withdrew their ground forces entirely. The orbital fleet remained, but they kept their distance. Chaos Drives had been modified to affect larger areas, and the Confederation couldn't risk their capital ships coming within range. A stalemate of sorts had been reached. They could still bombard us from orbit, but they couldn't control the surface without exposing themselves to the chaos effect. Dr. Chen, working with a team of engineers who had previously designed satellite launch systems, began development on a new delivery system, rockets that could carry Chaos Drives into orbit directly to the Confederation fleet. The aliens, recognizing the threat, kept their distance, maintaining a blockade but unable to reassert control. Earth was still trapped, still wounded, but no longer conquered. Then came the message that changed everything. It arrived not through conventional channels, but through a quantum entanglement device that Dr. Tanaka had been experimenting with. A method of communication that the Confederation apparently monitored less closely than radio or digital transmissions. The message wasn't from the Confederation, but from a species called the Nixari. Their small, stealth vessel had been observing the conflict from the edge of our solar system, hidden from both human and Confederation detection. "Greetings, humans," the transmission began, accompanied by a visual of a being that resembled a crystalline octopus, its translucent body pulsing with internal lights that seemed to form patterns as it spoke. "We have watched with great interest as you have done what no species has done in 10,000 years. You have defeated the Confederation. We represent a coalition of species who have suffered under their rule. We wish to learn from you." The message was met with skepticism at first. After all, humans had just spent months fighting off one alien invasion. We weren't eager to trust another alien species. But the Nixari provided proof of their claims. Detailed records of Confederation conquests stretching back millennia, information about other resistant species, and most convincingly, technical specifications that helped Dr. Chen improve the Chaos Drives. It turned out that Earth wasn't the only world that had been conquered. It was just the only one that had successfully fought back. The Nixari explained that the Confederation controlled over 60% of the known galaxy, with the remaining species either hiding in the fringes or paying ruinous tribute to avoid invasion. "We have been watching the Confederation for centuries," the Nixari representative explained during a secure communication. "They follow the same pattern with every world they conquer. They have not faced meaningful resistance in so long that they have forgotten how to adapt. Until you..." Dr. Chin met with the Nixari representatives in the ruins of Geneva, a neutral location that had been largely abandoned by both human and Confederation forces. The meeting was tense, with heavily armed human guards surrounding the alien delegation. "We can offer you the Chaos Drive technology," she said, But I must warn you, it's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It introduces fundamental unpredictability. There's no way to ensure it won't affect your systems as well. The Nexari representative, its crystalline body shimmering in the sunlight, filtering through the broken dome of what had once been the United Nations headquarters, rippled in what we later learned was their equivalent of laughter. You misunderstand, Dr. Chen. We don't want your technology. We want your thinking, your chaos. The representative extended a tentacle, touching a nearby chaos drive. Its crystalline body briefly distorted, then stabilized. Our biology and technology are different from the Confederation's. We evolved in quantum flux zones, areas of space where uncertainty is the norm. We can tolerate your chaos. What we cannot do is think like you do. What do you mean? Dr. Chen asked. The Confederation has ruled for so long because they imposed order on a chaotic universe. They made everything predictable, controllable. Species either adapted to their order or were conquered by it. But you, the Nixaria's lights pulsed rapidly. You embraced the chaos. You weaponized uncertainty itself. This is a strategy no species has attempted in recorded history. And that was how humanity found itself at the center of a galactic revolution. Not because our technology was superior, it wasn't. Not because our military was stronger, it definitely wasn't. But because we thought differently. Because we embraced chaos rather than trying to control it. The alliance with the Nixari changed everything. They provided humanity with technology to bypass the Confederation blockade, allowing us to establish contact with other resistant species throughout the galaxy. In exchange, we shared our chaos strategy, as they called it. Not just the chaos drives themselves, but the mindset behind them. Within a year, chaos drive technology had spread to 12 worlds. The Nixari, with their natural affinity for quantum uncertainty, became the primary manufacturers, improving the design to affect larger areas with greater stability, or rather controlled instability. The Confederation, for the first time in its history, found itself fighting a multi-front war against an enemy that didn't play by the rules. Their perfect conquest algorithm, refined over 10,000 years, simply couldn't account for the sheer unpredictability of the resistance they now faced. On the water world of Azuria, aquatic resistance fighters modified chaos drives to work underwater, creating zones of quantum uncertainty around Confederation resource extractors. On the gas giant Nimbus, floating cities equipped with chaos drives became impossible for Confederation ships to target or board. On the desert planet Kaha, burrowing species used the drives to create shifting labyrinths beneath the surface that Confederation ground forces couldn't navigate. Within 5 years, the Confederation had lost control of 1/3 of its territory. Their response was increasingly desperate. Mass bombardments, attempts to develop chaos system technology, even biological weapons designed to target specific species. But each new tactic was met with chaotic counter-tactics that couldn't be predicted or prepared for. The most significant blow came when a coalition fleet, led by human and Nixari commanders, managed to smuggle a massive chaos drive into the Confederation's central administrative world, a planet called Harmony that had served as their capital for millennia. The resulting quantum cascade didn't just disable their technology, it fundamentally altered the planet's reality. Harmony became dissonance overnight. Confederation leaders found themselves unable to issue coherent commands. Their perfect bureaucracy, dependent on absolute predictability, collapsed into contradiction and confusion. Some reports suggest that time itself became non-linear on parts of the planet, with cause and effect no longer following a reliable sequence. Within 10 years, the Galactic Confederation, as it had existed for millennia, was no more. Its territory had fragmented, with many worlds declaring independence or joining the growing coalition of free planets. The Confederation remnant still controlled a significant portion of the galaxy, but they had been forced to retreat to their core systems, abandoning their dreams of universal dominion. In its place arose something new, the Galactic Concord. Not an empire ruled by one species or one ideology, but a loose alliance of worlds united by a single principle: the right of each species to determine its own destiny. Dr. Chen, addressing the first gathering of the Concord on the neutral world of Nexus, put it eloquently. The universe is inherently chaotic. Stars explode, black holes form, planets collide. Life itself is an exercise in finding patterns within chaos, not imposing order upon it. The Confederation forgot this fundamental truth. They believed they could perfect reality by controlling it completely. We reminded them, and ourselves, that perfection is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to thrive within it. Today, 50 years after Dark Tuesday, humanity has spread to the stars, not as conquerors, but as innovators, as agents of controlled chaos in a galaxy that had grown too predictable for its own good. Earth has been rebuilt, though scars remain. The glass craters where Confederation bombardments hit hardest have been preserved as memorials. The half-azed ships still hanging in orbit have become tourist attractions, with specially shielded observation vessels taking visitors close enough to see the eerie boundary where our dimension meets another. Humanity's role in the Galactic Concord is unique. We aren't the most technologically advanced species. That honor still belongs to several former Confederation members who retained their knowledge while rejecting their former master's ideology. We aren't the most numerous, the strongest, or even the most intelligent by conventional metrics. But we are the chaos thinkers, the pattern breakers. When a problem seems unsolvable, when a situation has reached stalemate, the call goes out. We need a human perspective on this. The Confederation remnant still exists, confined to a few hundred systems where they continue to perfect their deterministic technology. They maintain a cold peace with the Concord, neither side eager to reignite full-scale war. They avoid contact with humans at all costs. In their historical archives, Earth is listed not as a conquered world or even as an enemy, but as a natural disaster. Dr. Chen, now in her 80s, still lectures occasionally at the Galactic Academy on Mars. Her most famous quote has become something of a mantra for human explorers. The universe is not a puzzle to be solved. It's a mystery to be experienced. The moment you think you understand everything is the moment you've stopped learning anything. The chaos drives have been largely decommissioned, though every human settlement keeps at least one in a secure facility, just in case. Most species find the technology too unpredictable to use regularly, though the Nixari have incorporated elements of it into their art, creating sculptures that never look the same twice. The technology has found peaceful applications as well. Controlled quantum uncertainty has revolutionized medicine, allowing for treatments that adapt to individual patients in real time. It has transformed computing, creating systems that can solve problems traditional computers find impossible. It has even created new forms of entertainment, chaos theaters, where the story changes with each viewing, never the same experience twice. Perhaps the most profound change has been in how other species view humans. We are not the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced, but we are the most adaptable, the most unpredictable, the most willing to embrace chaos when order fails us. As Ambassador Tileth of the Volus Confederacy put it in her address to the Concord Assembly, in a universe governed by entropy, the humans have made unpredictability their ally rather than their enemy. They do not fight chaos, they surf its leading edge. And in doing so, they have taught us all a valuable lesson. Sometimes the only way to restore balance is to first embrace imbalance. The stars are full of wonders and terrors beyond our imagining. The Nixari speak of ancient threats lurking in the spaces between galaxies. The former Confederation scientists warn of cosmic phenomena that even their advanced technology couldn't fully comprehend. There are mysteries in the quantum foam that may never be solved. But whatever the galaxy throws at us next, humanity will be ready. Not because we can predict what's coming, but because we know we can't, and we've made peace with that uncertainty. In chaos, we found our strength. In unpredictability, we found our salvation. And in the vast, uncharted wilderness of possibility, we found our home. Dr. Emma Chen stands at the observation deck of the Nexus station, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go through the massive spaceport. At 83, her body is frail, supported by medical technology that didn't exist when she first created the Chaos Drive, but her mind is as sharp as ever. A young Nexari approaches, its crystalline body still small, indicating its youth. "Dr. Chen," it says, lights pulsing in patterns of respect. "I am studying your work at the Academy. May I ask you a question?" Chen smiles. "Of course." "Did you know it would work? When you created the first Chaos Drive, did you know it would save your world?" Chen laughs, a sound that still carries the echo of the desperate days in the underwater facility. "No, I had no idea. It was a theory, a hope, a shot in the dark. It could have failed completely. It could have made things worse. It could have torn reality apart in ways we couldn't repair." The young Nixari's lights pulse in confusion. "Then why did you do it? Why take such a risk?" Chen turns back to the viewport, watching as a human ship docks alongside vessels from a dozen alien worlds. Because the alternative was certain defeat, and humanity has always preferred uncertain hope to certain doom. She places a wrinkled hand against the transparent barrier, as if reaching for the stars beyond. That's the secret the Confederation never understood. Certainty is comfortable, but it's also limiting. Uncertainty is frightening, but it's also where possibility lives. The young Nixari's crystalline body shimmers as it processes this concept. "My instructors say that humans have a unique relationship with chaos, that you seek it out even when you don't need to." Chen smiles. "Have you heard of something we call gambling, or extreme sports, or even just the human drive to explore? We've been poking the unknown with a stick since we first walked upright, just to see what happens." "But why?" the Nixari asks, its lights pulsing with genuine curiosity. "Because that's where growth happens," Chen replies, "in the space between what we know and what we don't know, in the gap between certainty and possibility." She turns to face the young alien. The Confederation spent 10,000 years perfecting what they already knew. Humanity has spent its entire existence reaching for what we don't know yet. The Nixari's lights pulse in what Chen has learned to recognize as understanding. "And that is why you were able to defeat them when no one else could." "That's part of it," Chen acknowledges. "But there's something else, something even more fundamental to who we are as a species." "What is that?" Chen's eyes twinkle with the same light that had illuminated them when she first conceived of the Chaos Drive. "We're stubborn as hell. Tell a human something is impossible, and we'll spend our lives trying to prove you wrong, just out of spite." The Nexari's body ripples in its species' version of laughter. "That, Dr. Chen, is perhaps the most chaotic trait of all." "Exactly," Chen says, turning back to the stars. "And I wouldn't have it any other way. In the cold vacuum between stars, power is no longer measured in worlds conquered or species subjugated. It's measured in diversity of thought, in adaptability, in the ability to face the unknown without fear. The Confederation sought to impose perfect order on an imperfect universe. They failed because they forgot, or perhaps never understood, that the universe isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be possible. Humanity didn't defeat the Confederation because we were stronger or smarter or more advanced. We defeated them because we remembered what they had forgotten, that chaos isn't the enemy of civilization. It's the crucible in which civilization is forged. As we continue to explore the stars, as we encounter new species and face new challenges, we carry with us this fundamental truth. In a universe of infinite possibility, the most powerful force isn't order. It isn't even chaos. It's the ability to dance on the boundary between the two, to find patterns in randomness and to introduce randomness into pattern. That is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not the chaos drive, not our technology or our art or our culture, but our fundamental understanding that the universe isn't something to be controlled. It's something to be experienced in all its messy, unpredictable, glorious uncertainty. And in that understanding, we found not just our salvation, but our purpose among the stars. If you found this exploration of humanity's chaotic potential fascinating, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about humanity's unique place in the cosmos. The algorithm gods demand their tribute, and who am I to deny them? And I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think is humanity's greatest strength when facing advanced alien civilizations? Is it our adaptability, our unpredictability, or something else entirely? Maybe it's our stubborn refusal to accept defeat, or our ability to find hope in the darkest situations. Let me know your thoughts below. The best comments might inspire future videos. Also, if you enjoyed this deep dive into humanity's potential, check out my other videos exploring similar themes. I've covered everything from humanity's unique biology to our strange psychological quirks that might seem completely alien to other species. Until next time, remember, in a universe of order, sometimes chaos is the only answer. And humans, we're chaos incarnate.